Hello and welcome to this general election debate for candidates for Arizona's mine inspector. This office is responsible for, among other things, enforcing safety regulations at Arizona's mines and protecting the health and safety of miners. This debate is brought to you by Clean Elections, the state's nonpartisan voter education agency. My name's Sydney Edwards.
And I'm Danielle Lerner, and we will be co-moderating tonight's debate. We are sharing this debate as part of an effort to support democracy in Arizona through a partnership with the Citizens Clean Elections Commission, the Arizona Media Association, and Reister. It is a partnership designed to make these debates accessible to everyone in Arizona.
That means this debate and several more between now and November will air on a long list of local TV stations, radio stations, and digital platforms, including support from local newspapers. It's a shared effort between hundreds of local media brands all across our state. The format of this debate may be familiar to you, and we've tried to keep the rules simple.
Each candidate will have up to 1 minute to make an opening statement, and the same for a closing statement. Candidates have drawn numbers to determine the order of each of those portions of the debate. Now, throughout the debate, we will pose questions to each candidate, allow them to answer, and then make sure the other candidate has a chance to respond. Whenever a question is directed to a specific candidate, only that candidate's microphone will be open. At all other times, every microphone will be open.
We do want to thank voters across Arizona who have submitted questions for this debate. We've reviewed all of them to make sure every voice is heard. However, no candidates have been given advanced access to any of those questions.
All right, with that, let's introduce the candidates for this debate. We have Brian Matlock and Les Presmick.
Good afternoon.
Mr. Presmick, you have the first opening statement. You have 1 minute.
My name is Les Presmick. I am the Arizona State Mine Inspector. I was appointed by Governor Hobbs last September to take the vacant position. I was one of 7 Republican applicants for the job, and she chose me as the most qualified. I'm a lifelong Arizonan. I spent 44 years as a mining engineer in Arizona mines, as well as the coal mines in New Mexico and Colorado. Spent 11 years in underground copper mining, 30 years with Salt River Project, dealing with all things related to fueling all of our generating stations in, again, Arizona, New Mexico, and Colorado. I love the job. It's all about safety. A constant question I get is, if it's all about safety and safety is an apolitical topic, why are you running as a partisan? It's just the way the process is set up.
All right, thank you. That's your 1 minute. And Mr. Matlock, you now have 1 minute.
Hi, thanks for having us. My name's Brian Matlock, and I'm running to be your next Arizona State Mine Inspector. I went to public schools, and I earned my engineering degree while I served in the Marine Reserves. And I've literally worked alongside the very people that the State Mine Inspector's office is meant to protect. So when you elect me, I will engage the rural communities. I'll engage the tribal communities. I will work to support Arizona's $10 billion mining industry. When it comes to safety, I will be a partner with safety with our miners and the mining operators. What does that mean? We expect that at the end of every day, a hard day's work, that the miners get home without injury or distress. I'm going to work with them to make sure that that happens. I will also be a leader in safety when it comes to working with our communities and in securing Arizona's more than 100,000 abandoned mines. And then finally, I will also be the final judge when it comes to land reclamation. What do we do when it comes time to close out a mine? I'll be the judge whether the work's done or it's not. So that's what you get when you elect Brian Matlock as your next Arizona State Mine Inspector.
All right, thank you, Mr. Matlock.
It's been almost a decade since this has been on the ballot, so many people at home aren't quite sure what exactly this position is and what the priorities are and how it impacts them. Can you briefly each share a little bit more about this role and what your priorities are and how they may differ from each other? Mr. Matlock, you have 1 minute.
Right. Yeah, so there's basically, you have the state legislature that set out a bunch of regulations that were there to enforce, and you can simply break them down into like three categories. So let's start with safety. So safety basically means taking care of the miners and making sure that what they do is done safely. That's anywhere from wearing gloves when you're doing certain tasks to wearing respirators and so on. But it also gets down to how you deal with cyanide and explosives and other aspects of working at the mine. The next place, and that's in that aspect, I see the mine inspector as a partner in safety. The next thing that's a really big part of the job is dealing with the abandoned mines, which we have more than 100,000 of those. About 500 of those abandoned mines are abandoned uranium mines up north. In that capacity, I see myself as a leader in safety, and that's working with the communities to identify the mines and help secure those mines. And then finally, we talked a little bit about land reclamation. What do we do when the mines play out? And in that role, the mine inspector first gets involved with a mine initially when it's permitted, and that approves the reclamation plan and the bond. Then at the end of the line, it's the mines inspector's job to approve that the reclamation work got done. So in a nutshell, those are the 3 legs of what the mine inspector does.
So there are actually 4 legs. First one is mine inspections. I have a team of 5 inspectors that are inspecting all of the 650 mines that come under the jurisdiction of my office. The second leg of this 4-legged stool is training. We are paid by MSHA to do the annual refresher training, the new miner training, which is a 24-hour class, and we just initiated new underground miner training in partnership with the University of Arizona in Tucson. That's a 40-hour class. Final mine reclamation, that is a responsibility delegated to my office about 20 years ago to make sure that not only are mines reclaimed at the end of the mine life, but there is money there to make that happen in case the company goes away. And finally, it's about the abandoned mines. There are 100,000 of those. We have inventoried about 11,000 at this point and secured those.
And I think we can all agree safety, of course, is a key component for this position and in this race. Mr. Matlock, you've proposed a new standard statewide health and safety model for mining operation, which I want to get to in just a moment. But first, Mr. Presmick, as someone who's in this position, can you talk about your current model for health and safety and how, if at all, you would adjust that going forward?
Well, so there are several models for safety. All of our mines are working very safely. We have the large copper mines. They have their safety protocols in place. The sand and gravel operations, they represent about half of the operating mines in this state. Copper right now is worth about $15 or $20 billion to the state of Arizona. The total mining value to the state is $35 billion. That's enough money to run Arizona state government, all the municipal government budgets in the valley, plus Tucson, with a little money left over to just put that in perspective. And so we see ourselves as educators and mentors, not regulators like MSHA. And so when we go on site to inspect our mines, we are there explaining to those folks that are working in the truck shops, that are working on equipment, that are doing the actual mining, why this is an unsafe condition and how to fix it, how to keep people aware of that. Every mine that I have been at, the ones that I worked in and the ones that we're now inspecting, safety is as integral a part of the mining as production and anything else at that mine. The new mines coming into production, like South 32, Ivanhoe Electric, Arizona Sonoran Copper, their stated goal is no serious accidents and absolutely no fatalities over 25 and 30 and 40-year mine lives. Safety is something that you establish at the outset as a culture, and then it just becomes part of the daily process.
And Mr. Matlock, how does your model differ from what's happening now, if at all?
So I want to be clear on when I talked about a new model, what I'm talking about is specifically inside the state mine inspector's office. That would be instituting a program of what I call best practices. It's basically nothing new, similar to a 9001 type of a deal where you have policies and procedures and you define how we do our job within the state mine inspector's office. Now, I agree, once we get outside and we start talking about safety, that is what we will be doing those inspections for. And I agree, it's the inspections that help keep things safe. But one of the challenges we have here in Arizona is there's a number that we use when we measure our effectiveness when it comes to safety. And it's basically measuring how many days of lost time that we spent per 200,000 hours. And so a higher number is worse. Arizona runs a number that's about 20% higher than the rest of the nation. Now that's a problem because the more incidents that you have, the more likely you are to lead to a fatal accident. So it's really important to make sure that our reporting is accurate and that we take care of even the most minuscule near misses to make sure as we reduce near misses, we also reduce the potential for fatal accidents.
All right, and real quick, it's just 30 seconds, I'll let you, as the person in this position, respond to that as far as Arizona's current percentage there.
You know, statistics are an interesting animal. Right now, the first quarter of this year, we are actually under the national average for one of those measures, lost time incidents. And that's, as Mr. Matlock said, that's a number based on every 200,000 hours of work at these mines. And so for the first quarter, the number is 1.35, national average is 1.91.
Okay, thank you.
You've both mentioned that there are over 100,000 abandoned mines here in our state. Mr. Presmick, you said that your office has already closed and secured 11,000. That leaves about 90,000 less left for us to that still pose hazard and risk and something that people are concerned about. So I want to start with you, Mr. Matlock. You said that is one of your top priorities. Can you share a plan? That's quite a lot of mines.
It is quite a lot of mines. And what I've told lots of people as I've been out on the campaign trail is I want to partner with the community to secure those mines. I'm a mountain biker. I want to work with mountain bikers, hikers, horseback riders and rockhounds, and as they find them, have them notify the office so we can at least know where they've come across these mines, because those are the most likely ones that we're going to have trouble with first. Then I'm also, when the weather's nice, and that means when the temperatures below 90 at the highest, I also volunteer with the Forestry Service to fix trails. I can see putting a program together where we can work with other communities to help us go out there and secure those mines. Now, it's not quite as easy as maybe fixing a trail, but it is something that can be done in some cases to help secure those mines. And there's a thing that's been pointed out before, that adults like to work hard just like children like to play. And when you get a bunch of folks together, like doing highway pickups and these type of activities, it's actually very rewarding for the community. So I will invite the community to be a part of closing these abandoned mines. On top of that, we can do some simple things. We can do some social media sleuthing. There's all kinds of people out there that are constantly posting, hey, look, I've been in this mine. In fact, I watched a fellow on Facebook or on YouTube just the other day going into an abandoned asbestos mine. He crawled through the rocks and was in there saying, oh, this is kind of dumb. My agreement with him was 100%.
Mr. Presmick, what are you doing right now? What is your plan? And what do you think about Mr. Matlock's plan?
Some of the things that Mr. Matlock has stated, I certainly approve of. But right now, we have 5 abandoned mine lands folks that are out looking for these mines. 3 of them are stationed in and around Tucson. The other 2 are up here so that they kind of split the responsibilities. Everywhere I have been, one of the challenges that I present to every group that I have spoken to is, when you're out hiking, when you're out ATVing, when you're out four-wheeling, and you come upon one of these abandoned mines, pin the coordinates, take a picture or 2, and my suggestion to them is, I don't need a picture of the hole. We have lots of pictures of the actual hole. What I need are pictures of, from 50 or 100 feet back of the saguaro cactus, a rock formation, so that as my teams come up and approach that area, they can see that they're getting close. The coordinates are fine, but we like to know when we're getting close. The first step in securing one of these sites is to fence it. That's not going to prevent people from entering those mines, but it's going to prevent the casual hiker or four-wheel driver from stumbling into that. So that's the first line of defense. If it's dangerous enough and close enough to civilization or a road, we will put a metal grate or meshing. We'll pin those and seal the opening. But before we do that, we consult with the Fish and Game Department to make sure that we're not closing that mine off to hibernating bats, to migrating bats, to any of the other four-legged animals that are using that as habitat. Once we know who and what is in there, then that's how we determine that we close the mine.
Yeah, certainly a lot goes into this process. So I appreciate that you're explaining that as we go, because I think a lot of people don't realize that. But mine reclamation kind of goes along with the issue of abandoned mines. I know that for modern mining operations, of course, Arizona does require financial assurances from owners and operators to cover the cost, essentially what happens if a mine closes. However, a lot of these abandoned mines predate that. And so when it comes to, taxpayer dollars potentially having to address some of these hazards. Is there enough funding there? And how do you prevent future mining operators who come in from leaving taxpayers with a bill? Mr. Presmick, we'll start with you.
So part of the legislation, part of the authority, and part of the responsibility of this office is to approve those final mine reclamation plans. And as part of that, require the operator to put in place the financial security, the bonds or bank accounts or whatever, that will do that final mine reclamation in the event that the company goes bankrupt or they just walk away from the property. And so those plans, that cost is updated every 5 years. So it's not like if the mine started 20 years ago, we're expecting to close that mine based on those dollars. We upgrade and update those numbers every 5 years. And so the authority and responsibility is on private lands. So any mine that is going to disturb 5 acres or more on private land has to file that final mine plan, final reclamation plan. All right, most mines, that's an easy hurdle to get over, or virtually all mines need at least 5 acres. All right, and so we are constantly updating those. We get any number of those final mine reclamation plans in. We have consultants that are doing the technical side of it because we don't have the budget nor the ability to hire the people that are experienced enough. We do that with several consultants that do so on behalf of the state and the state mine inspector's office.
Mr. Matlock, your thoughts on the current process, and would you do anything differently?
No, I think Mr. President pointed out very well what's going on currently. And when you actually read through the statutes, it's very not time-consuming, but time-sensitive. So a lot of the activities that need to take place have to take place within a reasonable amount of time, or that frees up the mine operator to go forward without having that information. When it comes to actually doing the work of making sure that the bond is correct, that's another big task, and I'm sure that's a challenge even for the current office, because what you are talking about is making estimates, and it requires a third-party estimate to make sure that the numbers that you're given are actually valid. So that's also a challenge. What I would look to is as you read through the statutes and the code, you'll see that they seem to have evolved over time. I believe there's a way that we can start consolidating and bringing those together to where you still give the flexibility that needs to be there. For example, when it comes time to remove topsoil, sometimes you have to stockpile it over here so you can use it another time. Other times you don't have to because it's really not going to do you any benefit. So those are case-specific issues. What we can do is we can just consolidate these down and make it into a more streamlined, less complicated and straightforward process.
Mr. Presmick, you did mention earlier that mining is a billion-dollar industry here in Arizona. Do you believe that Arizona can expand domestic mining while maintaining or improving safety standards? And if so, how would you do that?
So this isn't the first time I've had a question like that where it implies that somehow safety is an impediment to mining production. Nothing could be further from the truth. Over the next 20 years, over the next 30 years, it is anticipated that we have to produce as much copper as has been produced historically from the dawn of time to today. That's 400 billion pounds of copper, 500 billion pounds of copper, but the market looks like we need a similar amount over the next 30 years. Arizona is very well positioned to meet a large portion of that demand. If we took and declared Arizona its own country from Payson down to the Mexican border, we would be number 5 in the world in copper production. We have been the U.S.'s top copper producer since 1900. Today, we produce 72% of American copper. We have Resolution at Oak Flats. We have Ivanhoe Electric and Arizona Sonora north of Casa Grande, and several other projects that are coming online. Resolution alone will add 25% to America's copper production, and these other producers will do the same. Florence Copper is expected to produce about 85 million pounds a year once they get into full production, and they should be there by this time next year. And all of these companies, as I've said before, consider safety as part of their base culture to bring these mines online and to produce copper as safely as possible.
Ms. Malek, what are your thoughts? Do you believe that Arizona can expand mining while keeping safety standards? And what would you do differently than's being done right now?
Yes, I do agree that that mining can expand in Arizona, and it's actually needed to expand, and that's very important. And I agree with Mr. Presmick that when the demand is growing right now, like it is, particularly when you look at the Arizona's, all of the mines that we have in Arizona are running flat out. They only produce 5% of what's needed just to fill data centers. That gives us a sense of what the demand is looking at it right now. And so when that's a boom, that makes our miners work even harder. I've worked in industries where you get pushed, and you really need to have that at the very top level, safety being the primary thing that you work with. So you have to make sure that when we go to these mines and do these inspections as a partner in safety, that they understand that this is a culture of safety. And no mine wants to have an injury, because injuries generally result in a shutdown and a loss of money and a loss of production. So nobody wants that, and that's beside the human cost, obviously. So yes, we can do it, but I think it means a broader safety culture, which means more intense training and reducing that lost time number well below 1.
All right, and quickly, we can't have this conversation without addressing water. Of course, our state in a water crisis currently, an uncertain future regarding our water supply. And so I know you're not water regulators in this position, but what role, if any, should the Mine Inspector's Office play in ensuring that mining operations don't jeopardize water supplies for nearby communities? You have about 1 minute each for this one. Mr. Matlock, we'll start with you.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, the thing is, the state has done a really good job of making sure that everybody pulls in the same direction but stays in their lane. So the place that the mine inspector has anything to do with water, for the most part, has to do with flooding and drainage and what happens with water when we have a flood situation and what happens to that water when it leaves the mine sites. That's the primary portion of where the mine inspector gets involved. However, and the actual permitting process defines what's happening with water usage, and that's going to be through other agencies. So what I see, though, as we're going to these mine sites and we're doing those inspections, we should be aware with what those requirements are at the mine. And if we do see something that does not seem right, I see it's our obligation to work with those agencies and say, are you sure this is what's supposed to be happening over there? Because they're the ones that it's in their jurisdiction. So, it's a crossover. We'll be responsible for making sure that when it rains, that you keep all the nasty stuff where it's supposed to be and it doesn't go away. But then after that, it's going to be the other agencies, and we're going to be part of their watchdog, help them find the issues.
Mr. Presmick, what are you doing currently in this area? What would you do going forward?
So when my inspectors are going out for safety inspections, they're looking at dust, they're looking at water that may be leaving the mine site or that's contains metals that shouldn't be leaving the mine site. That's not our prime responsibility, but we take the safety of the environment very, very seriously. Dusty conditions certainly affect the workers that are there. That's an easy one. And I have already started developing the relationships with ADEQ, ADWR to do exactly that. That if we see something, the first phone call that any of my inspectors will make will be either to me or ADEQ to say, hey, there's contaminated water. You need to get up here, because they are responsible for that permitting. So we're already doing a lot of that.
All right, well, we want to thank both of you. Now it's time for closing statements. Each of you will have 1 minute, and to keep us on time, we will politely cut you off if you run over. Mr. Matlock, you have the first closing statement. 1 minute.
Great. I want to first thank you guys for running this very important event, because it preserves our First Amendment free speech, and it also educates our voters. My engineering education, my broad experience, and my practical knowledge make me the preferred candidate. I chose to run for this office so I can make a difference. Unlike Mr. Presmick here, who is the incumbent, who is trying to hold on to his position after it was given to him when the previous occupant, Paul Marsh, quit his term. I've built my career solving problems in some of the harshest environments in the world. I've seen what works and what fails when it comes to industrial safety. I am offering Arizona voters my professional expertise to help support Arizona's legislative expectations, to keep Arizona's mines safe for generations to come, and to help preserve and grow Arizona's $10 billion mining industry.
All right, thank you. Les Presmick, you have 1 minute for your closing statement.
Thank you. And I also want to thank you for putting this on, because it's a tremendous opportunity for the two of us to educate with your questions the general population, because 99+% of the voters out there have no clue what we do. So I bring the experience, 44 years as a mining engineer, 45+ years in Arizona mining. And this is one of two offices that have job qualifications, meaning that the state mine inspector, to run for this job, has to have at least 8 years of mining experience, operational or management experience in mines, at least 4 years of which are in Arizona. I bring that. I am the state mine inspector. I am doing the job, and I'm doing the job very well at this point. I'm asking the voters for another 4 years to complete a lot of the things that we've already started.
That's all the time we have for this general election debate for candidates for the mine inspector.
On behalf of our partners at Clean Elections, the Arizona Media Association, Reister, and Sneaky Big Studios, we'd like to thank you for joining us.